So I connected with Paula, with Kevin's mom, by phone somewhat randomly over the last couple of weeks, just to kind of help frame things and to say some, to offer some prayers from the Jewish tradition. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just sort of frame things. And but I, unlike most of you, or probably all of you, I was not fortunate enough to know this person, although I've learned a little bit about him, and what an unbelievable soul, what an incredible person. So I stand kind of humbly before you because I wasn't able to know him, I wasn't able to be touched by him. But I do want to offer some words from the Jewish tradition and some melodies, and then mostly turn it over to you for people to kind of share memories, thoughts, whatever comes to mind. And in a very kind of informal way, I'll just invite folks up here. We can create our own order out of it. I want to begin by saying that, as I was saying to Paula and Scott, there's no way to make sense out of what happened. There's no answer or resolution that will bring satisfaction, whether people in this room are religious or atheists or whatever you use to kind of navigate through the world. I think that in situations like this, we have the incredible challenge, and as parents all the more so, of facing the need to simply say this is, and not continue to look for answers that will make sense or make it better. Because I think we just know that there's not an answer that can make this okay. And so today we're here to just honor his memory and to console his parents and to console one another and to honor his life. So I'm going to chant the 23rd Psalm. I venture to guess that many of you know at least some of these words in English. So I'll read them in English. I wish I had a handout that we could read together, but I don't. And then I'm going to chant it in Hebrew. And then I'm going to say I'll recite one other passage, and then we'll just remember together. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God forever. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, v'no'ot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yanhaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magalei tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech, beged salmavet lo ira, ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umisha'anatecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Deshanta v'shemen roshi kohosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yedafuni kol yemei hayai. V'shavti bevet Adonai le'orech yamim. This is a passage from Kohelet, from Ecclesiastes. L'kol zman ve'et l'chol chefet tachat hashamayim. Et leledet ve'et lamut. Et l'ta'at ve'et la'akor natua. Et laharog ve'et lirpo. Et lifrotz ve'et livnot. Everything has a season and a time for every matter under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to rip down and a time to build. Et livkot ve'et lishchok, et tzfod ve'et rkod, et lahashlich avanim ve'et knos avanim, et lechavok ve'et lirchok mechabek. A time to a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast stones and a time to gather stones in, a time to embrace and a time to pull back from embracing. Et levakesh ve'et la'abed, et lishmor ve'et lashlich, et lirkoa ve'et litpor, et lachashot ve'et ledaber, et le'ehov ve'et lisno, et milchama ve'et shalom. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So I want to invite us just to take a minute of quiet, and then I'll just invite folks to come up, and we'll sort out the order as you come up and share whatever memories and thoughts come to mind to honor the memory of Kevin. Who's going to start us off? Please come up and share your memories. Don't be shy. Now's the time for words, not for silence. So please, somebody get us started, and then it'll start to flow.
Hi, I'm Vince. Just a little bit about the first time I met Kevin. I was working for another company, ran into some buddies at the lumberyard, and there was this third wheel with them running around the track, and he introduced himself as Kevin and that he worked for River City Bicycles. I told him, hey, I used to work there too. Flash forward 6 or 7 months later, I went back to work for River City, and there was Kevin sitting at a desk, 2 monitors, working on some graphic design project. And it was just natural to get pulled to him. You know, he had this gravity. And he and I became really good friends. I mean, we ended up sharing an office space. Look over my shoulder. If he was sitting there, I'd wad up a ball of paper, hit him in the head. It got pretty violent sometimes. And we shared space with Tom George. Where's Tom? And a couple other buddies, but we had a unique friendship, to say the least. Tom and I walked in one day, and Kevin and I were on the verge of throwing punches, it seemed like to anybody who would walk in. The language and the tension in our voices. And Kevin just got up and stormed out of the office. And I sit down with a smirk on my face. Tom asked me, do you even like each other? I go, yeah, he's one of my best friends. And that was our relationship. We talked a lot of smack back and forth, but it was just the fun we had. And for a guy who's 15 years younger than me, I looked up to him. He made the journey across the country, not having a job, a car full of bikes. Just having to make friends wherever he went. I was talking to a mutual friend last week. I go, even with him gone, he's still allowing me to make friends, with people that he's met. Wojta in the Czech Republic, Clemens in Germany. And I'm grateful for knowing him. I'm very grateful for knowing him. Thank you.
I'm Dave Gettler, the owner of River City Bicycles. I worked with Kevin for 4 years or however long it was. Paula, Scott, everyone here, I greatly appreciate all of your contributions to this. The main thing that I would like to express through this is that it is a celebration of his life. He was, throughout this whole thing, I just kept thinking, man, what would he be thinking about this? And it helped because he would just be thinking it was just ridiculous, and he'd be seeing all of this sadness, and again, I think he'd have a really hard time seeing that. All of you knew him to one extent or another, and he was a complex person. He had a lot of shades to him, a lot of sides to him. The side that I saw of him, probably first and foremost, to be perfectly honest, is that he was a great employee. That was really the basis of our relationship to begin with. Great employees push the boss. They make you rise to a higher level as well, and that's what Kevin did for me. When someone like that leaves, too young, too early, to me it's a matter of it's up to us to continue on that spirit. And you think about people like that in your life that do that, and they really push you to a higher plane and a higher ground. And that's what Kevin did to me throughout the relationship that I had with him. He was so creative, and he was just so good at what he did, and he just created that his own position and his own persona at River City, and helped build us to what higher than I could have anticipated. You don't dream about finding people like that, but sometimes they come up, and we're all at River City. We're all so lucky that we had him for the way too short of a time that we had him, but it was a phenomenal experience, and it's something I will never forget.
Hi there, my name is Wendy Dyer, and knew Kevin. I met Kevin at the beginning of the housing crisis back in 2014, 2015, when I was doing some arts outreach advocacy with a city-sanctioned tent village called Hazelnut Grove, which I'm hoping some of you have seen his work around. I'm a little sad to see some faces from Hazelnut Grove absent here, because I know that Kevin was really important to all the people who live down there and to shaping the vision the city of Portland had of the folks at Hazelnut Grove based on his advocacy work in that community. But times are still tough for those folks, and so getting to funerals is not always possible, and we'll just hold them in our heart and know they're holding Kevin in theirs from afar. Kevin came into my life through Hazelnut Grove, and at the time I was doing something called Art and Bath Time, where I would invite houseless people into my community every Sunday to take showers and cook food, and they would do art with me, and then I would use my community to sell their art so that they could pay their cell phones and build their tiny homes and whatnot. And Kevin was one of 3 documentary photographers who wanted to do a project on my work with Hazelnut Grove. And as they say, all press is good press. And so I welcomed all 3 of those journalists into my home. Kevin was the least experienced. I think this was maybe his first documentary. The other 2 were kind of big shot people. And so I was like, we'll see what happens with this guy. Well, let's skip forward a little bit and say Kevin's was the only documentary that ever got finished. And that documentary is probably one of the biggest gifts that I've ever received in my life. As someone who, not unlike Kevin, has many layers and lots of complexities, my story is not a straightforward and simple one. And somehow, over the course of at least 12 hours of interviewing and recording, he managed to distill down the essence of me and what I was doing into digestible 7-minute clip that cut out all of the unessentials and left just the message. And that was such a big gift to me, but I think it was also his future gift to the world, is his ability to have compassion, to have a laser focus into what really matters here, what's the gestalt of this situation, whether it's a houseless community or a biking community or a business or a family or a group of friends. Kevin knew just what the real value of that was, and he magnetically drew other people to that value. I don't know him as well as some of you do, or as long as some of you have. All I can say is that every experience I ever had with Kevin was something that made me think, God, I can't wait to see what else comes of this kid. Whether it was sharing a storage unit or trying to help him find housing or setting him up with my 55-year-old friend who had a spare room when he was facing homelessness, only to have her come back and say, I don't think that I can have that kid live with me. He's just too good looking and too smart and too nice. It wouldn't be safe. I couldn't enjoy my house anymore with that amazing guy in the other room. That's how Kevin was, and I hope that we can all remember him for the magic that he brought to this world. Thank you.
Kevin once set my head on fire on his birthday. I could probably leave it there, but I got to spend a considerable amount of time with him And like we got into so many crazy adventures. It was kind of nuts. I can't even remember half of them for a number of reasons. But Kevin lived an exceptional life, like more so than almost anyone I've ever met. And that's what I took from my friendship with Kevin, just a reminder that I need to do the same every day. Just wake up and forget about all the petty things, which he had plenty of complaints and gripes about everything. We know, everyone knows. But he still went into every day with an intensity that was addicting and affecting. So everyone should live like Kevin and just go into every day hard, no matter how it turns out. Thank you.
Hey everyone. I knew Kevin through work and through climbing, and I got to know him in a way that I think everybody else did. I was touched by his passion and his enthusiasm, and I'm not going to sound as eloquent as everybody else who's spoken, but I think the things that I'm going to take away from Kevin is that he genuinely cared for everybody that he knew and everybody that he interacted with. And I can't think of a better way to honor him than to care more for the people that are in my life. And, it's not the funnest thing, but I bailed on Kevin climbing a lot. He would always ask me to climb, and I'd always make up some excuse. And, we went a bunch, but it never felt like enough. And it was something that always lingered with me, that I didn't get to go climbing with him as much as I would have liked. And, I think that we can all do a better job caring for the people in our lives and use his love and passion and enthusiasm to better our relationships with each other. And so that's what I'm going to try to do moving forward. Thanks.
I'm Tom. I'm Kevin's other office mate. Since Kevin passed, I've been thinking about two different why questions. One of them is not very deep. It has to do with, why did Kevin like to ride Franken bikes? We have his daily rider out in the vestibule, and it's a funny bike. He kind of put it together out of this part and that part. And a couple times while I worked with Kevin, he would go across town to go and get a frame that was like a $30 frame that was a really good frame in like 1992 or something like that. And I think I have an answer to that question. And I think the answer is, Kevin hated to waste things. You'd see it in a lot of things. He didn't like wasting money, and he didn't like wasting. Well, anything, but he didn't like wasting parts. If there was something that was good once, why shouldn't it be good now? He had a thing on our office wall. I'm aware that I'm in a sanctuary, so I actually can't read it to you out loud. I'll hold it up, and if your eyes are good. I know it's tiny and you can't see it, but I'll sum it up by saying it says, I ride 26-inch wheels because why should a thing that was state-of-the-art once be no longer needed just because, of no fault of its own? He also, on his computer, the day that he passed away, he was working on this, which was a T-shirt design. It says, "Loyal to the coil," and I know I don't think most people ride coil springs anymore. Some do. I know that has a use, but I think Kevin was in the coil springs because of the fact that most people have moved on from him. So he didn't like, he didn't like to see things that were of value go to waste. And the hard thing is that, most importantly, he felt that way about people. So, as we've said today, human potential was really the thing he was most interested in. And it was the thing that he hated to see wasted more than anything else. And that's why he went to Hazelnut Grove, and it's why he worked with you. It's because he hated the idea that there were people in the world that you could just kind of toss aside. And because, his life was the only life he had to experiment with. His experiment in life was to see whether he could use every minute of his life, like every moment of his life, to the greatest potential that he could. We had the honor and really the pleasure of getting to see the live stream of the memorial service from Florida. And a lot of very, very inspiring things were said that day. One thing that stuck with me was said by the rabbi, which was that everybody has a mission in life, and that Kevin completed his mission in 28 short years. And sometimes you hear a thing like that and you say, well, okay. But Kevin did. He did, and it was a mission that he knew. He knew it, and it was something that he did absolutely consciously. It was a kind of an experiment. He said, I'm not going to waste any of my potential. I'm going to use all my potential, and I'm going to live every moment, and I'm also going to get as close to my potential as I possibly can. And that brings me to another why question that I've been wrestling with, and I think a lot of people here have also been wrestling with, which is, why did Kevin like to do things that were risky? Why did he like to do things that exposed him to risk? Because he did. He liked to climb, and he liked to ride downhill, and he liked to paddle, and he really liked those things. So why? It's common to say in a room like this, well, he died doing what he loved. And that's true. He really did. He loved to paddle. I remember the first day that he went and found the paddling community that he's been paddling with. And he showed me pictures, and he'd been taking pictures out on the water, and he said, these people get me. Like, I get them. These are people that I can understand. But he could just as easily have loved chess, right? And that wouldn't have been so risky. So why do these things? Like, why do things that run the risk of having somebody taken from us? And that's a hard question, right? Because we wonder whether maybe it's our fault, right? We wonder whether maybe if he had known his value, maybe he wouldn't have taken the risk. Maybe he wouldn't have done things that were so risky. But that's actually exactly the opposite of the thing that we should learn from Kevin. Because he did these things not because he doubted his value or that he doubted that people loved him. And, that's not why he was out taking risks. He wasn't an adrenaline junkie, and he wasn't somebody who was like a nothing to lose kind of person. He loved the people that he did these things with, and he felt the relationships that he had really keenly. So it's not about him not knowing what he was worth. It actually is about the fact that he did know what he was worth. And because he knew he had incredible potential and he was not going to waste that potential, that's why he did these things. Because when you have as your mission in life to get as close to your absolute potential as you possibly can, that's a risky thing to do. And so he took those risks because it was his mission, not in spite of his mission, but because it was his mission. And it can be tempting to look at something that feels pointless. When we say, well, his death, was it frivolous? Was it pointless? No, because he did this in pursuit of a thing that absolutely was his mission in life. He did these things to find out how close he could get to his ultimate perfection. So if we're looking to find some kind of answer, and I agree we're not going to be satisfied in any answer, but if we're looking for something that resembles a reason why, Kevin was a person with a mission. He absolutely was a person with a mission, and his mission meant something. His mission was for him, but also for us. So instead of looking at Kevin and saying, what a waste, that's exactly the wrong thing to do, because what we should see is that he did not waste anything, and he did not waste a moment of his life, and even in his death, he was not wasted, because he lived fully, and he lived every moment, and he lived to the fullest of his potential, more than I think anybody else I've known ever will. He got there, and he did achieve his mission, which was to find out how far he could go and how much he could do. So that's what I want us to come away with. He achieved that mission. He really did. And I'm grateful to him for that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley, and I'm here to support really dear friends of mine who knew Kevin. I unfortunately did not know Kevin. I met him maybe one time. I maybe said hello to him, so I didn't get the great opportunity that most of you guys got by knowing him. He seemed like a really great guy, a guy with a zest for life that kind of overflowed on everyone around him. And I grappled with the idea of saying anything today, because I'm an emotional person, so I might cry anyways, even though I don't really know him. But I figured that I'm just someone that represents someone that got a glimpse of Kevin. One little glimpse. And I've met a lot of people one time, many people one time, and I can't say that I remember them all, but I remember Kevin, and I remember how he was, and he was quiet, but he had like this vigor for life that radiated off of him, and I even felt it. And I told the people I was with, I was like, gosh, that guy looks like he's super fit, and he has this like vibe that he like sends out that's just like, I love life and I want to live it to the fullest, and that's what I got from him. My condolences to the family and to the people that loved him. I've learned some stuff about him. That, he motivated people to just get out there and do things. He motivated people to do stuff that they didn't think they could do. And he said, hey, if you get out there and do it, that's victory. You could suck while you're out there, but you're out there. That was pretty powerful to me, because, we all struggle with that on the daily, doing things we don't think we can do. And it's just a pretty special thing to have someone that's there to push you like that. I heard stuff like he didn't know how to dance, but boy, did he get out there and try to do it, which I like. I mean, hey, you're not the best at it, but you're gonna get out there and dance, and I guess it's a lesson for life in general. Just dance, that song, the cliche song, but and I just learned today, Miguel, one of my friends, who's very close to Kevin, he's wearing an egg shirt, and that made me laugh. I mean, his favorite shirt is an egg shirt. I mean, that just goes to show what kind of person he was, like quirky and everything, but an adventurous soul. And I told Miguel, I was like, it doesn't really feel right to say rest in peace, does it? So I was like, why don't we say ride in peace?
I'm here with my younger sister, Julia. And Julia and Kevin they dated for a while here in Portland, and they went their separate ways maybe a little under a year ago. But I remember one of the first events that I did with my sister and Kevin, one of the first activities was the naked bike ride. And I had not ever done the naked bike ride, and neither had my sister. And Kevin convinced her, and she in turn convinced me. And it was a great time. I remember she's a teacher, so she didn't want her students to see her, so she had a wig and was in disguise. But she just, had a great time, as did I. And I loved seeing him bring out that side of her, that same zest for life that we've all been kind of seeing here in people's stories. And then the other things that they did together, he took her on her first tandem bike ride. I remember she was so excited after that. And he also took her mountain biking. And these are things, that I would not go mountain biking. So, and then my sister, I would say, is less, well, I don't know who's more risk averse, but but she had such a great time. And, I just had never seen that in her. I'd seen it in her, but the way he brought that out in her was so great. And he also really encouraged her to go after her passion with art, because they really bonded over both being artists, graphic design and visual stuff. And I remember they did a little photo shoot one afternoon, and when she sent me the photos, he had taken some photos of her on the waterfront in Portland that she was going to use for her Etsy shop. And they were at least these headshots, and one of these photos, there was something he had captured in my sister's face and her expression. It literally made me tear up when I saw it. And I just, he really had a way of capturing something in the people that he loved and cared about, because he loved and cared about her, and she loved and cared about him, and they shared something really beautiful. And I'm so happy that they did, that she had the chance to know him, that I had the chance to know him through her. And yeah, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anna. A lot of friends also know me as Raggy. I used to work at the outlet with Kevin, and the outlet was definitely, still is one of my favorite places to be. I love everybody that works there. And Kevin was such a fun spirit to have at work. I remember he was so passionate about his photography, and it really brought out such a fun side of River City as well, and every awesome person that works there. And I remember one day being at work, and 2 blocks away from work, it's a questionable little area, and there's this tiny little plaid couch that can barely fit 2 people and had spray painted polka dots on it. If you were to go by, there's always somebody pretty kind of questionable sitting on the couch too. And I was changing a flat, and Kevin walks in with the couch. It's a pretty lightweight one, but still, he walks through the doors with a couch, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you brought that couch in here." He's like, "We're gonna take a picture on it." And everybody looked at him, we're not gonna sit on that couch, dude. Nobody is gonna sit on that couch. And but we still edged him on, like, okay, well, what's your big idea? And he grabbed a surly dummy, and me, Jeremy, and him spent an hour or so trying to strap down this little tiny couch on the back of a surly dummy. And if nobody knows what a surly dummy is, it's a cargo bike, so it's a big platform in the back. After an hour, we finally got it strapped onto the bike, really questionably, rolled it out to the back where the dumpster area is. I was like, all right, Kevin, you're sitting on that couch, I'll be on the front. And the picture was great. It really looked like the couch was stably on the bike, but it wasn't. It wasn't. No. Jeremy, over here somewhere. Hi, Jeremy. He ducked down behind the couch, out of the way of the photo, and held the couch up, and it took us a good little bit to feel stable. And if you guys have ever seen the picture, it's me riding it and handing him a beer while he's just splayed out on it. He's so comfortable, and it's such a nice day. So Kevin was an inspiration for all of my bicycle rides too, because he was so enthusiastic. He just could do anything. And having somebody like that at work, it can just make your day. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Brandon. I work at River City. I actually met Kevin before I worked at River City while he was doing his thing with Hazelnut Grove. Man, I don't think I've ever met anyone in my life that lived up to their ideals and their morals more than Kevin did. To say the least, pretty inspirational. I was always just absolutely blown away by somebody that would really go that much. I wouldn't even say out of his way. It was just something that he really wanted people to know about him and about the houseless communities. Absolutely incredible person. And I remember when a friend of mine passed away, somebody told me, none of us are going to live forever, but we live to create something that does. And that Kevin, the way he lived up to his ideals, that is so inspirational to me. And it's just like, if I could live to be anything, it would be that. And I remember the day that he passed, telling Dave, the owner of the bike shop, how close everybody got at that moment was just unbelievable. I don't think I've ever felt so part of a family in my entire life as that one moment. And that was all Kevin. Just incredible guy.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn, and I met Kevin in the bike industry before he even moved to Portland, and he was such an engaging character. A couple weeks or months later, he reached out via email and said that he was moving to Portland, and I was shocked, but I was also really excited to have a chance to get to know him better. And at the time I was working for Portland Design Works, and he came and he did a video about who we were and what we were up to. And the result was just so authentic. And Kevin he was so respectful of everyone that he met. And the bike industry is not always that way to not everybody that is in that space. But he always met people so respectfully, and he was such an ally, and I'm really grateful to have known him.
Hi, my name is Eric, and I didn't actually know Kevin at all. The first day I met him was on the river, and we were trying to save him. And I don't think many of us knew him that day, and that's kind of how it works sometimes. Everyone just shows up, and we go on a paddle together. And you guys all knew him, and so you're feeling this sense of loss. And in hearing you guys and people talk, I realized I felt this sense of deconnection over the past month. It's been hard. I haven't really thought about it. It's hard. It's like you go numb. But in hearing especially one person tell about this guy, I'm honestly feeling a sense of regret that I didn't know him. He sounds like the type of guy that I would have really liked to know. He sounds like he had a certain magic about him. He inspired all of you guys, and that makes me go, I wish I could have known this guy. He's right up my alley. He's my type of guy. And I've honestly been nervous about getting back in a boat since this happened. It's just my honest heart. But in hearing about how he whatever the word is, strived to live up to his potential as hard as he could, I feel this sense of reconnection. It feels to me like I don't have a choice. I have to get back into a boat, because if he was here, it sounds to me, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, he would probably go, "You freaking wuss, get back in your boat." And I feel like sort of a restored identity. And it's weird. How do you connect to a guy in his death? I don't know, but I wished I could have known him. And I wish I could say to him, "Man, I'm sorry this happened to you." And I can say to you guys, I'm sorry this happened to him. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Hi there. My name is John Amy. I first got to meet Kevin when he worked at the Hawley Company in South Carolina. It's a company I used to work for as well. And one day, I'd moved a couple territories, ended up here in Portland in 2012. And I was in a meeting at River City, and Dave said, "Hey, do you know a guy named Kevin?" And we just hired him into our marketing department. I was like, "Wow, Kevin, yeah, he's an enormous amount of talent." He was, as people said, an enormous amount of life and energy with him. And yeah, I was like, yeah, he's a great guy. He's going to do great things. And so I lived on the periphery of his life. But he would be walking into River City when I'd be walking out, and we'd just stand in the parking lot of River City and talk for either 5 to 15 minutes about what he was doing, what I was doing, and just to hear where he was going to go and do. He told me he was going to do what I remember as the kamikaze, which was a mountain bike ride that involves coming down this huge ice slope. He kind of described it, and I went home that night and Googled it, and I was like, that's insane. But he came back and we talked about that, and then he told me that he was going to immerse himself into Hazelnut Grove, and I was like, wow, that's going to be a really good story when that comes out. And I've seen the documentary, and if you guys haven't, I encourage you to do it. It's an incredible story. And so I'm going to miss those chance meetings I had with him, because it happened like that. I'd be walking out, and he'd be walking in. Like, "Hey, Kevin, what are you doing next?" But yeah, unbelievable, incredible person. I was honored to meet him and spend time with him. So, thanks.
I had a really short but intense connection with Kevin. We started dating 2 weeks before he passed away. And I just wanted to let you all know that his second to last day was spent eating Javier's bacon breakfast burritos and soaking in the McMinimans pool and glaring at unruly children. We bonded over our hatred of the papyrus font, so shout out to, I'm pretty sure that was Vince's doing of the memorial announcement. Kevin would have hated that, but also probably giggled a little bit. And then I also know he finished one of his monster bike projects, so the last Franken bike had made its way to Craigslist, and he had an early night that night for his next morning paddle. The last thing that I had sent to him was a picture of sexy SpongeBob to make him laugh in the morning, and he said, "Haha, gross." So those were the last words I got from Kevin, and I'm really mad at him that he cut our time short. Sorry. I have the distinct honor, I think, of, other than Paula and Scott, knowing Kevin the longest. We met in the 6th grade. So we're both 10 or 11 years old. Anyway, I don't know what to say exactly. I'm just so sorry, first of all, that I think
second of all, I'm just so proud of Kevin, having known him from such a young age. You know, knowing someone when they're that young, you haven't really started that trajectory of your life yet. You're still figuring yourself out as a human, and I'm proud of how much of an authentic life he led, and he's so smart and so brilliant, but he didn't go down this super traditional path, and I'm so proud of him for that, and just knowing who he was, and I truthfully hadn't stayed a ton in touch in the last couple of years, but just to see this community that he built here and knowing the community he had at home is just an amazing part. And then I know my brother and sister-in-law are here to share that. My whole family loved Kevin so much, and we really miss him.
So me and Miguel, we met Kevin. Sorry, this is really hard. Okay. Sorry. Me and Miguel met Kevin at Bingo, actually, Mississippi Pizza, and he was this guy wandering around in the dark because it had already started. And me and Miguel were watching him, and we're like, there's no seats available at all. And he just kept wandering, and he was kind of in the way, so we just kind of were like, hey, do you want to sit down? And just had him sit with us. And he was actually looking for a meetup group because he had just moved here to Portland, and so he didn't know many people. And that day, he became one of our great friends. And, he took down our numbers, and I thought he would just never, text us back, or just oh, it's just this random guy at the bingo thing. And he hit up me and Miguel that next morning, and I kind of just ignored it because I was like, oh, I don't want him to think that he likes me. Or I was like, oh, I don't know if it's like that. And then he hit up Miguel and wanted to hang out. And I was like, oh, okay, so it sounds like a cool guy, more of a friend. And so Miguel was hanging out with him. And then we all just kind of hang out all together. And he was just one of those guys where, one moment, one event we'd be dancing, and like somebody had said, he's not a great dancer, but he would be out there doing his thing. And then there would be moments where me and him would just have some really deep conversations. So I got to know him on very different levels. So he was a great guy, and someone that really cared about people, and he would talk about his family back home often. I got to know about his life, about work, about personal, about his home. He's just a great guy. He was one of those people that me and Miguel were playing tennis, and he came and stopped by on his bike, and we had ran out of water, and it was such a hot day. And he biked half a mile just to get water for us. And we were like, you don't have to do that, Kevin. But he did it. And it was just that's just one example of something that he did often. He would do that on all occasions, just go out of his way to care for other people and make that a point. And so, similar to what somebody else said of making more of an effort to put in those relationships, I take that as well from him. And so just wanted to say that he changed my life as well.
Howdy, my name is Jake, and I knew Kevin, met a couple years ago on a run. He worked at River City, which was right next to Portland Running Company, and they'd have these community runs. And so Kevin showed up one day, and I've been running for 30 years, and I think it might have been one of Kevin's first runs. And that was just kind of like him to kind of throw himself into whatever was going on around him. And so we just connected on that run and found out that he was an artist and did a lot of video work. And I was getting married that summer, and so I was like, hey, man, I know this is probably really boring, but I'd love it if you came and did the video of our wedding. And I'd asked my brother, who's also an artist, to do it. My brother had said, I won't do that for $1 million. That sounds so boring. And I think for artists, like stuff like that's kind of canned, and like how many ways can you be creative with it? And so Kevin was just kind of in the background the whole time the ceremony was going on. And my wife and I, we weren't sure how it was going to turn out. I didn't know Kevin that well, and so like, well, whatever he makes out of it, it's going to be cool, and we'll see. And it took him a couple months to get it back, and we get it, and it was just like this amazing 3 to 4 minute version that captured the whole event. And we're like, that was way cooler than the actual event. Right? I was like, I mean, I was there, and it was fun for me because I was getting married, but like for most people, it wasn't that cool. And, it was like, like a music video. It was just like crazy explosions and crazy soundtrack to it, and like, wow, that was pretty cool. And I think that kind of speaks volumes to the vision and kind of the lens that he saw everything as like taking something that we see and it was fairly mundane and canned and turned into something pretty amazing. So it's a pretty cool memory to have that, and a lot of his work that we still have and can look back on. It's a pretty cool legacy to have, and yeah, it was a gift to him, and a gift that I was able to interact with him. Thanks.
Hi. Kevin never told me about the naked bike ride. Back, where is Dave? Hi, Dave. Kevin did say to us one time, why don't you go in to see Dave? And Paula was so excited. So Paula would say, well, what do I say to Dave? Well, what do we say? And Kevin said, well, tell him you're my folks. Dave, we're Kevin's folks. Everyone here, I don't know, Kevin was saying, well, what do I do here now? And Kevin is saying to me, tell my friends, you're my folks. So everyone here, we're Kevin's folks. I just can't believe all this kind of stuff is happening, but I've got some kind of script here, but I'm not going to go through it. But, the thing with someone might have heard back in Fort Lauderdale, when I'm going, I'm good, or I'm down. I never understood Kevin saying, I'm good. It really meant, I'll hang out with Kevin. I'll move in with you, Kevin. What do you say? He says, I'm good. I thought, well, that's great. But it really meant, I'm good, Dad. And the thing with I'm down was we offered him, let's go out for breakfast or lunch. And he said, I'm down. I said, well, why don't you want to go? He goes, no, Dad, I'm down. But, I did say to my niece, could you come stay with us, like, forever? My brother's daughter, she probably would say, I'm good. So, could everyone stay with us? We have an extra room. Forever. I guess you're all good. I'm not going to go through. I got all tons of stuff here, but I'm not going to go through it. But Paula wanted me to go first, so I don't know what she was going to say. I usually like going last. Kevin would say, I'm the closer. Paula is the closer, and she can do it. I expressed how proud I was back in Fort Lauderdale. This is from Paula. Not from me. It was something she wrote in private. Kevin never heard it, but he knows every letter that's in here. And she was sitting on a chair that used to rock. Kevin, it's called So Proud. This is from Paula. Where did the time go? I rocked you from the chair. I write this. It's not easy being a parent, but it has been worth it. You can't imagine the love and pride I have for you. I will always love you and hope you bring pride and love to all those around you. Be proud of who you are, and that includes being Jewish. You have amazing talents and gifts. The world is yours. Give to it, and it will repay you. Wow, has this repaid? I miss you very much, but I know that it is your time to go now. This was when he was just leaving for college. I'll write more later. I'll write more later on. Talk about pride. Ditto to Paula. It goes on and on. I've got all kinds of stories, but I don't know. I'll just go right on to this thing. We met on top of a mountain. I could look out, and there's a movie called Field of Dreams. A lot of you might not know about it, but it's a story about a father, actually a son who wants a connection with a father. They build a field in the middle of Iowa to have a connection. Everybody wants a connection. And the name of it was Build It and They Will Come, to have a connection. And there's so many connections with Kevin and the people here. And so what happens at the end of the movie is Kevin Costner asks his father in a dream, hey, Dad, do you want to have a catch? And they have a catch at the end of the movie, and that's the dream come true. Here in Portland, and they would say in that movie, is this heaven? And he would answer, no, this is Iowa. Well, here it is, Oregon. Is this heaven? No, this is Oregon. But my dreams really did come true here, on top of a mountain in a little place called the Skyline Tavern. And I was hanging out with Kevin there. And we were just talking. And much of what I said with him up there will remain with me and Kevin. But, he did say to me a few things. He wanted to air it out with me. And he did say, hey, why are you so cheap? Why are you splitting entrees? I said, because we like to save money, and I'm full when I'm done eating the meal. And he would, I did express to him at that time that, you're doing what you want. You're out here, and you're maxing out, like so many people have said, that he really doing what he wants to do. Some of his friends are making more money, but he's enjoying himself, and I tried to express that to him. And I did tell him, I overflowingly loved him, and he didn't challenge me. He didn't say anything like, no, you don't. And then he says to me, check out this tandem bike as we're leaving the restaurant. Oh, by the way, he paid for the meal. Tasted better. Corned beef sandwich, a beer. I don't really like beer, but that beer tasted good. And he takes me on this tandem bike. I thought he was just going to show it to me. Then he says, get on it. And I thought it was going to be for a 1-minute ride. And like I said, back in Fort Lauderdale, an hour and a half down the mountain later, we made it back to the hotel. And so they talk about the Field of Dreams. And even when he went to Florida State University, it was live the dream. Live in your dream. Kurt Zimmerman, I think, was the motivational speaker at Florida State University. And he would say to the kids incoming freshmen, you've got to live your dream. Or if they ask you how you're doing, answer, I'm living the dream. And I would call Kevin and I would say, well, how you doing? He's going to these crazy events, jumping off snow-capped mountains in a bicycle. I said, so sounds like you're living the dream. He said, pretty much. And so I got to tell you, in the Field of Dreams movie, in a dream, there was a connection with the father and the son. That was through having a catch. My dreams came through and came true on a bicycle built for two. I thank everyone here for coming and expressing how much you care about Kevin. You know, the most important thing is not how great a videographer and all kinds of great things he could do artistically. This is what matters. The connections. And in the end, all that matters are friendships. Our friend down the street said, well, I've got to take on this legacy. They're telling me rabbis and deacons in the church that now the baton has been passed back to me and I have to live out Kevin's legacy. Or I have to actually be his legacy. Well, I told a friend down the street who used to jump off ramps with Kevin into the lake. His name is John, and son Zach. And I said to him, I cannot live up to what Kevin was. I plan and I hope to be half the person Kevin was. And he looked at me right in the eye and said, if you are half the person Kevin was, you will be amazing. Thanks so much for coming.
I'm Kevin's mom, Paula. I want to thank you all for being in Kevin's life. He really loved his Portland family. And though we didn't like him living 3,000 miles away, we at least felt that he had family here, and we truly did. I didn't know, we hadn't met a lot of you before, but we heard a lot about many of you, so it was nice to finally make the connection. I really did love raising Kevin. He was an amazing kid in many ways and challenging as well, and just a few funny things. And there's nothing else funny in mine, so you better laugh at this part. Anyway, when he was about 3, I had went through his whole baby book when I used to write all the milestones. So when this all happened, it was very hard for me to go back and read all of this. But when he was about 3, he would ask the most interesting questions. Do you die when you have diarrhea? I thought, oh, that's really a good question. I never thought of that. Can you feel darkness? Can you feel darkness? I mean, I don't even know how I answered some of these questions. We used to take him to all the national parks everywhere, so it's no surprise that he wound up absolutely loving nature. So we were in the Grand Tetons, and we always went to ranger programs, and the ranger was talking about bare trees. And Kevin was being a wise ass and said to the ranger, and so do bears live in bare trees? Scott and I were literally mortified. And then around the same time one day, or maybe he was a little younger, he was eating a chicken wing, and he wanted to know, how does that come off the chicken without killing the chicken? I think I gave about 5 answers, none of which he believed. And then he went on to becoming a vegetarian and a vegan for a good number of years, because I think he realized the chicken has to die. So those were just some of the examples. And I will just tell you that I loved raising Kevin more than life itself. And I had a career, but during the years of raising him, I worked part-time and then went back full-time. Jerry's friend, Kevin's friend Jerry, said that we need to love each other more and be inspired by what Kevin showed us. And Kevin was quite an inspiration. He did things that always inspired me. He was not a quitter, except for t-ball and flag football. He absolutely hated those sports. But he had to overcome adversity, such as being made fun of because he was smart. And he was very sensitive, and that hurt him, it hurt us. He inspired me by being modest. He could accomplish so many things, but he was never a braggart about it. He did it really to push himself more and more and more. He inspired me with his creativity. He would have jam sessions in our garage where everybody would come in the middle of the night, pull things off our shelves, makeshift instruments. He, as many of you know, collects things from dumpsters and garage sales, and he's even done dumpster diving, which I never even knew what that was, to create bikes out of stuff you would throw away. Bamboo bike. Pam, he would tell her mother, go visit your in-laws so she can bring me bamboo so I can build this bamboo bike, which he won awards for. But mostly he inspired me because of who he was, the friendships he formed with people from all different backgrounds. He didn't care who you were, where you came from, if you had money. Just, are you a nice person? And are you somebody I want to hang out with? And that's who he was. I have to read part of this poem that some of you may have heard because it truly made me think of Kevin, and I got it in a condolence card. It's called The Dash, and it's by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For the dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love, and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that still can be rearranged. Now that's not the end of the poem. It goes on, but the dash to me represents a short lifetime, but I do know that he made the most of his short lifetime by everything you said, which I don't need to repeat. He flew in for my birthday on December 1st. It was a surprise. He wrote the most beautiful card I have ever received, and I told him. He told me that he was so grateful for the opportunities I had given him and what I had done for him in his lifetime, and that he wasn't necessarily always good at showing it. But he said, I am so grateful that you're my mom. And I wrote back to him and I said, in a similar manner, letting him know that I always believed in him and just wanted him to have the opportunities to choose the life he wanted, and how proud I was of him. And he said to me, your note meant so much to me. So Kevin may not have told all of you, and I've heard this said by some people, I don't know if Kevin really liked me, or I don't know if Kevin really loved me, but I'm going to tell you, Kevin did, and you know that too. So I think all we can say at this point is to keep Kevin alive in your heart and do as Kevin would do, to love more, to live more, to honor people around you. And I don't know what else to say except this is going to be so incredibly hard to live without Kevin for us. Like I said before, I will always be Kevin's mom. And I will miss him more than life itself. Thank you.
Thanks again for coming. I do want to have one poem. Leon Russell. To Kevin. I've been so many places in my life and time. I've sung a lot of songs. I've made some bad rhymes. I've acted out my life in stages with about 200 people watching, but we're alone now. And I'm singing this song for you. I know your image of me is what I hope to be. I know I've treated you unkindly, but son, can't you see? There's no one more important to me. So son, can't you please see through me? Because we're alone now, and I'm singing this song for you. You taught me precious secrets of a true love withholding nothing. You came out in front when I was hiding. But now it's so much better. So if my words don't come quite together, listen to the melody, because my love is in there hiding. I love you in a place where there's no space or time. I love you for my life, because you're the only son of mine. And when my life is over, remember when we were together. And we're alone now. And I'm singing this song for you.
I get the sense that Kevin didn't spend an enormous amount of time in synagogues. What an incredible bright light. There's a Hebrew phrase that we say at moments like this, Zichrono Livracha, which means may his memory be a blessing. And what I take that to mean is kind of building on what his mother said. Everybody in this room has a memory of Kevin, and allow yourself and other people to be blessed by what that memory inspires in you. I also want to encourage you to, I'm sure there are people who had things that they wanted to say. For those maybe who didn't speak, or for those who did speak, you forgot to say. And I want to encourage you to share those things by mail with his parents, and be in touch. Those of you especially who are close with Kevin, find a way to be in touch with his parents. I want to share one thought, and then we're going to close with with the mourner's Kaddish, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So I think that Kevin died. I think you shared with me. Kevin died the week of it's called Parshat Beshalach, which means so in the Jewish tradition we read through the Torah, we read through the Bible each Saturday, little by little, until we go from the beginning all the way to the end. And so he died the week that in synagogue we were reading the story of when the Israelites come out of Egypt and the sea splits. I'm going to assume that everybody knows that story, even if we know the story. And there's this great puzzle, like exactly what moment did the sea split and what caused it to split? And there's a story that's not in the Bible, but in the Jewish tradition, it's called a midrash, which is to say it's part of what we call the oral tradition. So it's part of our tradition, but it's not actually in the Bible, and it explains things that the Torah doesn't explain. And so there's a story that says that as the Israelites were standing at the sea with the sea in front of them, nowhere to go forward, with the Egyptians pursuing them, people were standing around kind of worried, what are we going to do? Either we drown or we're killed by the Egyptians. And there was no possibility of salvation or redemption. And the story goes that there was a person named Nachshon. And Nachshon was a person who must have been kind of fearless and must have known that life had to be something more than fear. And Nachshon just started to walk into the water. And he walked into the water, and when the water got up to his neck, that's actually when the sea split. And it strikes me that Kevin had some Nachshon in him, a person who, in very beautiful ways, was fearless, not in ways that demeaned his life, but in ways that elevated his life and brought about possibilities for other people. So Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing. I want to invite you now to rise for the mourner's Kaddish. The Kaddish is a prayer. I was going to translate it into English, but I'll just, instead of doing that, I'll just tell you what I take from the Kaddish. The Kaddish is a prayer that we say when somebody dies, but it's actually a prayer that doesn't mention death. It's a prayer that's really an affirmation of life, and an affirmation that in spite of loss and pain and grief and difficulty, that the world is filled with beauty and that life is worth living, which seems to me to be one of the many magnificent messages that this incredible human being brought into the world. So I'm just going to read his Hebrew name, and then I'm going to say the mourner's Kaddish with his parents. So may the memory of Kevin, that's Yitzchak ben Ruvain v'Abigail Pesel, be a blessing. If you know the Kaddish, you're welcome to join in. Yitzchak, Yitzchak, Shmerah, Alma, Divrach, Nute, Dinamik, Malchute, Chai Chon, Yom Chon, Chai Kol Beit Yisrael, Malach, Zman Karim, Yibru Amen, Yehi Shmerah, Rach, Elam, Omer, Omayah, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitpa'ar, Yitromam, Yitnaseh, Yizadar, Yizdalet, Yizhalal, Shnei Kudusha, Richu, Le'elam, Yikol, Birkata, B'shirata, Shush B'chata, B'nechamata, Javiran, Ba'alma, Yibur, Amen. Yehi Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, B'chaim, Aleinu, Be'al Kol Yisrael, Yibur, Amen. Oseh Shalom, Yiroma, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, Be'al Kol Yisrael, Yibur, Amen. Vince, can I ask you to come up and give people a sense of what happens next?
Other people will have to come up now, is what you're saying?
As far as I'm concerned, but yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
So at this time, if there's other people who want to come up and say something, we want them to do it.
Okay. We also have the ability to have a mic in the other room, too.
Okay, well, we can do it right here if they want to do it.
All right. So the family would invite anybody else who has any other words to say. You can come now. Anybody? If not, we're going to be moving over into the reception hall. We'll have a mic and some speakers set up, so if anybody is moved at that point, they can say some words as well. We'll have a slideshow. I've got some videos that he's done that I want to share. We'll have some music, some food, some light refreshments, hopefully a lot of talking and hugging, sharing stories. But